A solar plane backed by an unlikely supporter completes a historic trip around the world. We'll have that and other top stories in the roundup. North American stock markets were mixed today as the U.S. Federal Reserve kicked off a two-day meeting. Blackberry isn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. Despite a series of flops, it's unveiling another new phone. That story kicks off the roundup. Nicole Verkindt is the founder and president of OMX. Why does Blackberry still try to make phones? Aren't they just a software company now?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
But I mean, this company has sort of telegraphed to everybody we're getting out of, not out of, but we're moving away from the handset where they were once dominant to sort of, software and the enterprise server, and that's a small but growing part of their business. Why is it so important for them to still have some kind of a handset?
I think they're trying to find themselves again. I think it's a little too late. This reminds me a little bit of the Yahoo story where they're probably worth more broken up into somebody else. I read that there are two Chinese cell phone providers that are selling over 30 million units a year, and BlackBerry is selling 500,000. So you have to believe that there's something in there that's worth something more to somebody else. But I mean, 5+ years ago, everyone in government that I knew had a BlackBerry. Anyone in military, intelligence, it was the high security. Why did they get so seduced by the consumer and try to compete with Apple and be something else to everyone? So,
well, I mean, the way in which they lost their way from 2000, what would have been their height? Like 2008, probably 2000. 8 or 9, because they had nearly 47% of global smartphone.
It was huge.
It was everywhere you looked, and like you say, like I worked in Ottawa at the time. Everybody had a BlackBerry. Remember Brick Breaker? Like it was a cultural phenomenon, and now it's down to 1%. And what I guess I just don't understand is, why does it feel the need to double down on the handset stuff? Like, is it important for a software company to have a handset, like a tactile thing on which it can sort of show off its software? Can it not just be a standalone software company?
I think you have to choose. So Apple chose very early on in their life, we're going to be both, and we're going to be a fully closed system, and that's going to be our benefit. And they suffered for many years because they didn't have the open source software. And then they, as we saw, they took off. So I think you have to choose. You have to decide what you're good at. For Apple, it seemed to be the marketing, the cool factor. And for BlackBerry, it was the keyboard. I don't know. You have to decide what you're going to do.
Well, that's the cool. These new Android-powered phones don't have the iconic keyboard. So it's like the one thing that you want out of a BlackBerry handset.
The other thing is, I think they've lost that market where people really, really need the super high security. Where you get into markets and you have journalists in dangerous areas, or you have military intelligence, they're all on completely different products that none of us are aware of.
Who picked up that? Like, because it used to be kind of, if you worked at a hospital or if you worked in military or in government, you kind of had to have a BlackBerry. Do you know who has that market now? Like, has it just sort of spread out over Android? Like, it's more of a software thing than a hardware thing? Is that
the trend that I've seen is, I call it the BYOD, bring your own device trend. So, I mean,
and the software sort of got to a point where
the software's all cloud-based now. And that's the market OMX plays in. We're cloud-based. We're hardware agnostic is the word, the terminology we use. And I think that's the direction it's going. You're going to be traveling in the future from one boardroom desk to an airplane, and those hardware devices are going to change, but all your software will be in the cloud.
Okay, the Liquor Commission Board of Ontario, the LCBO, is getting into online booze sales. And on the face of it, this looks like, well, sure, that makes sense. It's the modern thing to do. But the details of this, it makes me think that this was a deal that would have been good in like 1999 or 2005, maybe. Is this too much or too little too late for the LCBO?
It's insane. So let me start by saying that I happen to actually like LCBO. I think it's a well-run organization, but it's probably because they have so much money. They have the monopoly. So my position is take the $1 billion in dividend that they're taking every year and all the tax on alcohol and just replace that with an increased tax and open it up to the market. But the government should not try to be Amazon. I mean, I run an online marketplace. These things are iterative. The technology is changing so quickly. And what's with the Canada Post thing? We get 2 for 1 now. The government controls the monopoly marketplace, and you have to ship it through Canada Post. What are they afraid of, Peter? Do they think that the UPS driver is going to drink all of our wine?
Well, so the Canada Post, just to put a line under that, Canada Post, all the shipping will go through Canada Post. You can get your deliveries. If you order online, you can get your deliveries in a cool 4 to 12 days in this day that everybody's trying to do same-day delivery with a $12 fee. Like, it doesn't sort of tick off any of the boxes of what I would expect somebody's trying to do online sales would be sort of baseline.
There's no incentive there. If you think about it, I believe the LCBO was initially set up to reduce our desire to drink so much, right? And so their incentive was not to grow their market and to not be incredibly efficient. And I think our wine in Ontario is probably just as expensive as anywhere else, but we have the largest buying power on the planet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues that I see with this, but instinctively and philosophically, I just don't agree with the government running an online marketplace and launching it and having it, let business market, let business sell, let business distribute.
And were you saying that you know somebody who started a wine?
Wineonline.ca has been around for ages.
Yeah, and that's none of this, like, sort of take you 2 weeks to get a bottle of wine.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're delivered. They had to buy from the LCBO,
That's right, and then you go and pick
so they're
it up
still
from
suffering from those huge expenses from that bureaucracy.
It is astounding to see, like, the LCBO on sort of pot sales is trying to be progressive, and then you see a deal like this, and it looks like they don't know what online sales should properly look like.
I think there's a very important place for government, and there, security. There's lots of place.
Is booze sales the place?
Booze sales, I don't think is the place.
Okay. Lastly, this solar plane that went around the world. It's a remarkable story. And yet I kind of look at it and say, well, wait a second. You took how many months to get around the, yes, it's enormous. It's important. It's this plane
you didn't want to take 5 days to go from Hawaii to Japan?
Well, there's that. 505 hours, 23 days, a 16-stage thing. Apparently this plane it could fly in perpetuity. The reason it needs to land is to get a pilot in there. Is this a breakthrough, or is it just sort of a gimmick?
Come on, this is really cool. The place where I see this as a breakthrough is in surveillance, and I think we're going to see, drones, and we're going to see a lot of things. These airplanes are flying above the weather system, way higher than commercial aircraft.
But they have to go fairly low to the ground at night, right? When they don't have sun charging the solar power.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure. When I read this story, my instinct was this should be an inspiration for Canada. Why is our brand and our name not in this very ambitious project that had a lot of global attention?
Well, and the guy, one of the pilots or one of the creators said when it was finished that, look, this is just the first step. We just wanted to go out and do this one thing, and now there's all kinds of opportunities to show that we've done this and to show that a plane this size can travel that far with only a limited amount of stops. They were grounded for like 10 months because of weather, I think. So it went on longer than it actually sort of needed to. But at the same time, what he's saying is somebody else needs to pick this up and do the next thing with it. Who do you look for in that space to do that? Is it a country? Is it a private company? Is it
again, industry can step in with the technology and run from there and find the applications and figure out what markets. But I thought it was neat that the U.A.E. was a big sponsor of this, a big oil producing country.
Yeah, and as part of a big green shift in that country to get away from oil.
I found that very interesting, and I was looking into a lot of other oil producing nations have taken a big leadership in
Saudi
renewables,
Arabia is one of them.
In Norway and others. So I think Canada needs to make a push there.
Canada's got a long history in that world, right? Back to the Avro Arrow and the Canadarm. There is sort of a private and public sort of role for Canada to play in that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You're mentioning aerospace companies and clean techs. That's a good combination.
There you go. All right, we got to wrap it up with that. Always good to see you.
You too, Peter.
Nicole Verkindt.